My dad texted, "Since you never help, don't expect a dime when I'm gone." I just countered, "Understood." Then I pulled my $120,000 investment from his business. 3 days later, he was at my place, holding a handwritten apology. I, 32M, never thought a single text message would end up reshaping my entire relationship with my father. But life has a way of forcing difficult conversations through the most unexpected channels. The message came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my consulting firm. Dad's words hit me like a slap across the face, especially coming after what I thought had been years of steady support for both him and his struggling restaurant business. For context, Dad had opened his dream restaurant 5 years ago after retiring from his corporate job. It was his passion project, a small Italian place that served authentic recipes passed down from my grandmother. The problem was, Dad knew food but had zero business sense. Within the first year, he was drowning in debt and poor management decisions. That's when I stepped in, not just with money, though that was a significant part of it. I had invested $120,000 of my own savings into the restaurant over the past 4 years, money that came from bonuses, side projects, and frankly, sacrifices I made to help keep his dream alive. But beyond the financial investment, I spent countless weekends helping with inventory management, setting up better accounting systems, even waiting tables during busy periods when he was short-staffed. My wife had questioned the arrangement more than once, pointing out that my 2 siblings contributed nothing while I carried the entire burden. My older brother lived across the country and sent a Christmas card once a year. My younger sister was too busy with her own life to even visit, let alone help with the restaurant. Yet somehow, I was the one getting blamed for not doing enough. The trigger for Dad's angry text had been his request for me to spend my entire weekend helping him prep for a large catering order. I had to decline because my wife was having a minor surgical procedure and I needed to be home to take care of her and our young daughter. I explained this to him, offered to help the following weekend instead, and even suggested he hire temporary help that I would pay for. Apparently, my reasonable alternative wasn't good enough. So when that text arrived, calling me ungrateful and essentially writing me out of any future inheritance because I never help, something inside me snapped. Not the explosive kind of anger that makes you say things you regret. This was cold, calculated clarity. I typed back a simple response, "Understood." Then I opened my laptop and began drafting formal documents to withdraw my investment from the restaurant. I had always been careful to structure my financial contributions as loans with proper documentation, partly because my wife insisted on it, and partly because some part of me knew this day might come. The withdrawal wasn't going to be immediate, but it didn't need to be. I requested a meeting with Dad's accountant for Thursday morning to begin the process of liquidating my stake in the business. I also scheduled a consultation with my attorney to ensure everything was handled legally and professionally. By Wednesday evening, I had all the paperwork ready. The withdrawal would give Dad 90 days to either buy out my investment or find alternative financing. Given the restaurant's cash flow problems, I knew he had neither the liquid assets nor the credit to make this work without serious scrambling. I wasn't trying to destroy the restaurant, but I was done being treated like an ungrateful child when I had been the only family member actually supporting his dream, both financially and practically. Thursday morning came, and I met with the accountant. He seemed surprised, but not shocked. He had seen the family dynamics play out in the books and knew how much I had contributed versus my siblings. The paperwork was straightforward since I had always insisted on proper documentation. I texted Dad a simple message. "Withdrawal paperwork has been filed. You have 90 days as per our original agreement." The silence that followed was deafening. Friday passed without any response. I spent the weekend focused on my wife's recovery and enjoying time with my daughter, feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time in years, I wasn't worrying about the restaurant's problems or planning my next weekend around Dad's latest crisis. Monday brought the first crack in Dad's silence. He called, but I let it go to voicemail. His message was brief and tense, asking me to call him back to discuss the situation. I didn't return the call immediately. Instead, I waited until after work and sent a text letting him know I was available to discuss the business transition, but that the decision was final. Tuesday brought more calls, which I continued to let go to voicemail. The messages grew increasingly desperate. Dad started acknowledging that maybe he had been too harsh in his original text, but he stopped short of a real apology. Instead, He focused on the practical implications of my withdrawal, asking how we could work something out. By Wednesday, 3 days after my withdrawal paperwork had been filed, Dad was clearly panicking. The accountant had apparently explained just how devastating the loss of my investment would be. The restaurant was already operating on thin margins, and losing $120,000 in backing would likely force him to close within the 90-day period. That evening, I heard a knock at my front door. Through the peephole, I saw Dad standing there, looking older and more defeated than I had ever seen him. He was holding what appeared to be a handwritten letter. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in immediately. He asked if we could talk, and I could see in his eyes that he finally understood the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't just about the money, though the financial impact was devastating. This was about respect, recognition, and the fundamental dynamics of our relationship. He handed me the letter before either of us said anything else. It was 3 pages long, handwritten in his careful script. In it, he acknowledged every sacrifice I had made over the past 4 years. He admitted that he had taken my support for granted and that his angry text had been completely unfair. More importantly, he recognized that my siblings had contributed nothing while I had carried the entire burden of supporting his dream. The apology was comprehensive and clearly had taken him considerable time to craft. He acknowledged specific instances where I had gone above and beyond, from the late nights helping with inventory to the weekends I had given up to keep the restaurant running. He admitted that his pride had prevented him from fully appreciating what I had done and that his frustration about the restaurant's struggles had been misdirected toward the one person actually trying to help. But what struck me most was the final paragraph, where he wrote that he understood if I couldn't forgive him and that he respected my decision to withdraw from the business. He wasn't just apologizing to get his money back. He was genuinely acknowledging how wrong he had been. I invited him inside, and we sat at my kitchen table while my wife discreetly took our daughter upstairs to give us privacy. The conversation that followed was unlike any we had ever had. Dad opened up about his fears regarding the restaurant, his embarrassment about needing so much help, and his frustration that his other children had shown so little interest in his dream. I explained my perspective as well, how hurtful it had been to be accused of not helping when I had sacrificed so much, how unfair it was that my siblings faced no expectations while I carried all the responsibility. How his text had felt like a complete dismissal of everything I had done for him. The conversation went on for nearly 2 hours. By the end, we both had a much clearer understanding of how the situation had deteriorated so badly. Dad admitted that he had been afraid to ask my siblings for help because he assumed they would say no. So he had placed all his expectations on me because he knew I wouldn't refuse him. I told him that while I appreciated the apology, I wasn't ready to simply reverse my decision. The withdrawal would proceed as planned, but I was willing to discuss alternative ways to support the restaurant that didn't leave me feeling taken for granted. Update 1. Over the next 2 weeks, Dad and I had several more conversations about the future of the restaurant and our relationship. The handwritten apology had been genuine, but I needed to see consistent change in how he approached our family dynamics. The most significant development came when Dad finally reached out to my siblings. He called both my brother and sister to explain the situation and ask for their input on the restaurant's future. Their responses were telling. My brother offered a small loan, but made it clear he expected full repayment with interest. My sister declined to help financially, but offered to visit more often to provide moral support. Dad seemed genuinely surprised by their lukewarm responses, especially compared to the years of support I had provided. It was a reality check that I think he needed to fully understand how unbalanced our family contributions had been. Meanwhile, I had been thinking about what kind of ongoing relationship I wanted with the restaurant. The truth was, I still believed in Dad's dream and enjoyed the work I had done to help improve the business operations. What I couldn't accept was being taken for granted and blamed when I had legitimate reasons to prioritize other responsibilities. I proposed a new arrangement. Instead of a simple investment, I would become a formal business partner with clearly defined roles and responsibilities. This would give me an actual voice in business decisions and establish boundaries around when and how I would contribute time to the restaurant. Most importantly, it would create a professional framework for our working relationship that separated it from our personal family dynamics. Dad was initially hesitant about giving up complete control of the restaurant, but he recognized that his previous management approach hadn't been sustainable. The accountant supported the partnership idea, pointing out that my business background and systematic approach had already improved the restaurant's operations significantly. We spent several days working through the details with both the accountant and my attorney. The new partnership agreement protected both of our interests while establishing clear expectations for financial contributions, time commitments, and decision-making authority. Update 2. 6 weeks after the original text message that started this entire crisis, Dad and I signed the partnership agreement. My $120,000 investment was restructured as partnership equity rather than a loan, and we established formal roles that played to both of our strengths. Dad remained the head chef and face of the restaurant, while I took responsibility for business operations, marketing, and financial management. The change in our working relationship was immediate and dramatic. Instead of me constantly putting out fires and covering for operational problems, we now had regular business meetings where we planned ahead and addressed challenges systematically. Dad started treating my time and input with the respect it deserved, and I felt much more invested in the restaurant's success as a true partner rather than just a financial backstop. More importantly, the partnership structure forced Dad to be more transparent about the restaurant's challenges and more receptive to operational changes. We implemented several improvements that had been on my wish list for years, including a modern point-of-sale system, better inventory management, and a more strategic approach to marketing and customer retention. The family dynamics improved as well. With clear boundaries established around the business relationship, our personal interactions became much more positive. Dad stopped taking my support for granted and started expressing genuine appreciation for my contributions. He also stopped expecting automatic availability for restaurant work, instead scheduling business discussions and collaborative work sessions like the professional partnership we had created. My siblings' reactions to the new arrangement were mixed, but ultimately irrelevant. My brother seemed slightly resentful that I had gained an ownership stake in what he still viewed as Dad's restaurant. But since he had never contributed anything meaningful, his opinion carried little weight. My sister was more supportive, saying she was glad Dad had someone reliable to help him navigate the business challenges. The restaurant's performance improved significantly under the new partnership structure. With better systems in place and more strategic planning, we saw a marked increase in both revenue and profitability. Dad's creative energy was freed up to focus on the food and customer experience, while I handled the business operations that had always been his weakness. Update 3. 3 months after our partnership began, Dad made an announcement that caught me completely off guard. He wanted to expand the restaurant into catering services more aggressively and potentially open a second location within 2 years. The old Dad would have announced this as a fait accompli and expected me to figure out how to make it work financially. Instead, he presented it as a proposal for our partnership to consider and evaluate together. We spent weeks analyzing the expansion possibilities, examining cash flow projections, market research, and operational requirements. It was exactly the kind of collaborative planning that had been missing from our previous arrangement. Dad brought the creative vision and culinary expertise, while I contributed business analysis and strategic planning. The catering expansion proved to be a smart move. Dad's authentic Italian cooking had always been the restaurant's strongest selling point, and catering allowed us to reach customers who might not otherwise visit our location. Within 2 months of launching the enhanced catering services, it became a significant revenue stream that improved our overall financial stability. More importantly, the success of our collaborative approach to the catering expansion reinforced the value of our partnership structure. Dad gained confidence in business planning and decision-making, while I felt more creatively engaged with the restaurant's development. The relationship with my family also continued to evolve positively. Dad started including me in conversations about his long-term plans, both for the business and personally. He began acknowledging my contributions publicly, telling customers and other family members about the improvements I had helped implement. The recognition I had always craved but never received was finally forthcoming. My wife noticed the change in my stress levels and overall satisfaction. For years, the restaurant had been a source of tension in our household because of the time and energy it demanded without apparent appreciation. Now it felt like a legitimate business venture that contributed positively to our family's financial future while providing me with a creative outlet and meaningful collaboration with my father. Looking back on that angry text message that started this entire transformation, I'm almost grateful it happened. Dad's harsh words forced a long overdue reckoning with our family dynamics and business relationship. Without that crisis, we might have continued the unsustainable pattern indefinitely, with growing resentment on both sides. The handwritten apology was the turning point, but the real change came from restructuring our entire approach to working together. Instead of a family favor that could be taken for granted, we created a professional partnership based on mutual respect and clearly defined contributions. 6 months later, the restaurant is thriving, our family relationships are stronger, and I have genuine excitement about the business's future potential. Dad's dream is still alive, but now it's built on a foundation that respects everyone's contributions and maintains healthy boundaries. Sometimes the most difficult conversations, even when they start with hurtful accusations, can lead to the most meaningful improvements in our relationships. The key is being willing to move beyond the immediate hurt to address the underlying issues that created the conflict in the first place. The $120,000 investment that almost disappeared is now worth more than ever, not just financially, but in terms of the relationship and mutual respect it helped create. Dad learned to value what he had been taking for granted, and I learned that sometimes you have to be willing to walk away to earn the respect you deserve.